The zombie is a simple monster. You have your basic corpse, and you add to that walking around. There you have it, a zombie. You'd think that someone would have thought up a zombie before now. Well, someone did. The zombie was conceived of as far back as the 14th century. In Inferno, Dante meets Fra Albergio, who tells him of traitors like himself who are dead before their bodies die. Dante is horrified, for he has seen one of these men that the friar describes, one that eats and drinks and sleeps and puts on clothes, but is nevertheless dead. That's a zombie for sure. Even Shakespeare has a zombie. In the Comedy of Errors from 1594, we find Dr. Pinch, who is described as a living dead man. So what's interesting to me is that both Dante and Shakespeare conceived of an animated corpse hundreds of years ago, but they never caught on as a monster. They never caught on because at that time the conditions weren't right. The zombies didn't resonate with the culture. It didn't threaten the collective identity of the time. It probably has something to do with the ubiquitous belief in the afterlife that suppressed the walking of the dead. As far as monsters go, zombies are relative newcomers, arriving on the scene only in the last 100 years or so. The zombie is a New World monster. Unlike ghosts, ghouls, werewolves, vampires, and other monsters that have been transmitted to American culture through the medium of European fiction, the zombie's different. It went directly from folklore to the movie screen, and skipped the literary phase enjoyed by most of Europe's monsters. But even with its short history, the zombie has undergone a few small but very significant changes. The history of the zombie starts in Africa. It was brought to the Americas with slavery. In one of its African manifestations, the zombie was an external spirit that was feared because it was capable of indwelling a person and sort of erasing the human subject. The zombie changed as it moved from its native African context to the Caribbean, where it appeared in Haitian folklore and the Voodoo religion. No longer a spirit, the zombie became a body controlled by an external force or person. Mindless and lacking free will, the zombie was an unwilling servant of a malevolent sorcerer or master of some sort. It represents the way slavery stripped a person of their personhood. The zombie then came here. In the early 20th century, the zombie entered American culture from the travel literature of William B. Seabrook. After living in Haiti for 2 years, Seabrook wrote a first-person account of voodoo rituals in his book called The Magic Island, 1929. This book seems to have been the inspiration for the film White Zombie in 1932. Set in Haiti, this film links zombies to colonial anxieties. A white sorcerer controls the minds of peasants and his former enemies to create a labor force to work in his sugar mill and amass a fortune. White Zombie is representative of early zombie films that deal with a blend of voodoo, hypnotism, and scientific experimentation. The bad guys of the early zombie films were not the zombies. The bad guys were the masters who controlled them. The voodoo sorcerer robs the individual of their autonomy and turns them into mindless slaves. The zombie was so terrifying because it depicted the absolute objectification of the human being. They became mere instruments to be used and abused by an evil master. Zombies are mindless monsters, but in the American context of the early 20th century, this mindlessness came to signify something different than it did in the Caribbean. Just before World War I, Henry Ford set up the first assembly line for the Model T. The war created the need for mass production of tanks and airplanes, ambulances, and munitions. The assembly line fit the bill, and it didn't stop with the end of the war. In the new, efficient, cost-effective economic system of production, a lot of human beings became mere cogs in a giant machine. The zombies were human bodies emptied of selfhood. See the connection? So now the zombie starts to resonate. The next manifestation of zombies was found in Richard Matheson's book, I Am Legend, in 1954. In this book, the protagonist, Robert Neville, is the sole survivor of a pandemic that killed almost everyone. Most of the survivors have become vampire-type creatures, but Matheson's monsters are not like traditional vampires. For one thing, they are apocalyptic. They are not exotic, alluring, or evil, nor are they lone nocturnal hunters, but attack in a pack. And unlike Dracula, there is nothing supernatural about them. In all these ways, Matheson's vampires foreshadow the modern zombie. Another precursor to the modern zombie was the science fiction cinema of the 1950s, which featured aliens from space coming to Earth and taking control of human beings for various nefarious purposes. In Invasion of the Body Snatchers, alien plants replace people with duplicates while they sleep. The duplication is perfect except for they have no emotions. This pseudo-zombie was rooted in fears about the loss of individuality in an age of rapid technological and cultural transformation, as well as fear of an assault from the communists who were out to destroy our normal way of life. Then came the modern zombie. It was a blending of the early cinematic zombies with Matheson's vampire, but it was much more than this, because it was embodying a whole new set of cultural anxieties. In 1968, George Romero made an independent film called The Night of the Living Dead for just over $100,000, using mostly unknown actors. In this movie, Romero created the modern zombie. There have been some variations to Romero's zombie. 28 Days Later in 2002, 28 Weeks Later in 2007 present a powerful, fast-moving creature possessed by an uncontrollable rage. The Resident Evil franchise brought us another angry monster, but this one was much more motivated by hunger. In 2013, the movie World War Z introduced us to a zombie that behaved a lot like a swarm of insects. And there are a whole bunch of different types of zombies. There are runner zombies, pukers or spitters, bones, stalkers, animal zombies, intelligent zombies, behemoth zombies, and a lot more. These are fun, but they are playful diversions from the true modern zombies. In my analysis, I'm going to focus on the essential zombie monster, the one introduced to us in The Night of the Living Dead, and groans in shambles through AMC's hit television show The Walking Dead, and all its many spin-offs. You know, the zombie from Zombieland and Shaun of the Dead. This zombie is the most persistent, and it's the one that is resonating. We think we know who we are, and how it all is, but the presence of the zombie horde is an indication that we don't. And they aren't going anywhere until we deal with the root causes of the identity crisis that has brought them. This video series is an attempt to get at those root causes and discover what it is that has brought the zombies upon us. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.